Dorte and Michaela to come and join me on the panel here, please. And we have our first laptop on the panel today. Does the laptop have a name?
It has, Brian.
Called Brian.
Yeah, I just take a picture of the audience. It's so impressive. Voila.
Okay, thank you both very much for coming up. You'll need a microphone. Sit down.
Just organizing.
You're very organised, I can tell. And you've got the laptop there to help you.
Yeah.
Your friend Brian in the middle. Okay, tell me, Dorte, what you do.
Yeah. I am the leader I'm the headmaster of the board of a local area with 177 flats. Some of them is for young people, like students. A group of them are elderly people, and the rest is for the family. The biggest group is for families, 3-4 rooms flats. And the area is from 98, I think, 1998. 89, no, yeah.
So why did you do this? Why did you want to do this headmaster role?
I think I'm from a political family.
Yeah.
And I'm from a family. I grew up actually in a farming school, which is a place where people live in Denmark. They lived there for 9 months. And my father was a headmaster, so maybe it's a genetic thing. I'm not sure about that. But there was a gardener, and there was a lot of people working in the school, and of course they were part of this community. So that might be one of the reasons.
And what are you responsible for within the 177 families and people?
Yeah, of course I'm not responsible, because if I pass away or if the whole or if the board is not functioning, is being dysfunctional, there will still be an organization taking over, or the staff will just still do what they usually do. But from a democratic perspective and from a political perspective, I think I'm responsible of taking care of the house and the garden and the democracy, and the people feel good, feel fine, that people feel that they have some ownership to the area, and to be sure that actually we have no discrimination. I think that's part of it, and to be sure that there's a respectful communication between both the head, the overall organization, and the staff, and the tenants.
And what was the last major decision concerning your building that you were involved in?
Well, of course, the thing has changed a lot, because when I moved in, it was a very new area. And at that time, it was like new lamps, because there wasn't feeling safety, and there was a lot of changing in the building. And then we had some money for a period, so that was more like having parties and making the social community to function. But these days, we don't have very much money, and we have a lot of tax on the environmental things like water and energy. So the most important now is to put water meters, energy, any kind of putting down the cost on energy. That's most important, I think. And from a social perspective, I think my personal decision is to support the young, the boys in the area doing funny stuff, which I think all young boys do when they're around 12 to 25 or something like that. and be sure that they can do a lot of funny things, and they have some troubles with the police. Sometimes it's fair, sometimes it's really unfair, and they have realized that when it's unfair, I support them. And that's why they actually they do have respect for what I'm saying. So the contact with them has been very good. It is not because of the house area they have done the problems. There's other reasons and some of them are really out in something wild, but it's not because of us. They like to live there. They even say, one of them, which was actually a member of Hells Angels, I think, for a period, he said, "But no, Dorte, I'm not doing the thing in the yard. I'm doing it outside, because here my daughter is playing, and I like to be here." So they went out of their yard, and then they did a lot of funny things, and then they came back. And but now today, I think he's back and he's married and living normal life.
And what would you do if a 17-year-old young woman who was a tenant came along with a very different idea to yours about how things should be done?
I think I've changed within the last 2 hours. I think
that's not a fair question. I'm sorry.
The thing is that I'll find it difficult to find time and energy to support her, but I think I'll do whatever I can to support her doing other things.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the integration part is very supported in Denmark. We have a lot of Danish lessons for everybody coming to Denmark, and it's paid by the kommune, and we do have a lot of support for the integration. But definitely, I will try to support it the best I can, especially if that kind of energy we just saw earlier today.
That's really good. Thank you very much. And Michaela, can you tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. My name is Michaela Kauer. I'm coming from Vienna. I'm a very proud Viennese. And I work now for 5 years for the Brussels office of the city of Vienna. And I have a 20 years background with working for the city administration, which started, in fact, with housing and urban renewal.
And Vienna is the biggest social housing provider in Europe, is that right?
I think in the world.
In the world? Ooh.
Yeah. We are the biggest. We have like 60% of the Viennese population are living in social housing, which means communally housing, like the classic Gemeindebau, as we call it. So this is a big share, and the other part has been supported financially through a variety of instruments. So it's about 2/3 of our population are living in social housing in a very broad sense.
Okay. And how do you empower your tenants?
Pardon me?
How do you empower your tenants? How do you involve
we
them?
think that the first thing to empower them is, of course, to give them security of living. That means that there we have a very, very long history in Vienna, as you might know. Since there were democratic elections in Vienna in 1920, 1919, 1920, right after the First World War, Social Democrats were governing the city, and they had a clear agenda that housing was the precondition to have a successful and fulfilled life. Yeah? So the well-being, the love, the hope, all of these were part of their agenda at that time, and that hasn't changed a lot since then. What we do to empower tenants is, of course, very different instruments. We have a strong tenants protection in the general housing laws that apply to all over Austria. So this is the first part. And what we do in our own system, which is the housing owned by the city, is there we encourage people to form partnerships, to engage in their neighborhood. But we don't encourage them only. I think this is the wrong approach. It's providing a lot of possibilities to take part in community life, and not leaving them alone. It was said before that there are people who love to engage, and they are very fit and they are very well educated, and they do that. And there are people who have difficulties. So you always have to look at those who might be left behind and include them in the process. So I think there's a lot of legal ways to give rights to tenants, but there's also a lot of informal activity going on.
Okay, good. And in Vienna, you have a growing demand for social housing and housing. Are you building enough new homes?
We hope that, because the latest demographic development shows us that Vienna is going to touch 2 million inhabitants in 2029. Which means we are growing by 25,000 people each year at the moment. This is a lot of people. It's coming. It's influx from other parts of Austria. It's of course at the same time we are getting younger and older. So we are going to be it's true, because those who are coming as immigrants, they are in the age where you start your family life, which means the average migrant to Vienna, be it an Austrian or a foreigner, is about 27 years old. This is the best age, to reproduce. And at the same time we are older, but we are going to be the youngest federal state of Austria in the next 1 or 2 years. Mm-hmm. So we need housing for 20,000 people each year, 20 to 25,000, and we are really doing our best to offer enough possibilities at the moment. But it's not easy.
How do you raise the money to build the
Yeah.
new homes?
I mean, historically, our forefathers and mothers in Vienna were clever, but they had the right to develop taxes as a city. So what they did, they taxed the rich. They had a special housing tax, but it wasn't called housing tax. It was called tax on having private employees in your household. Yeah. So this was a very clever trick. So I wouldn't think that would work at these times. But of course, money is a big issue, and one of the problems we have, and all of the cities I know are growing at the moment. We are not the fastest growing city in Europe. I think we are 5th place at the moment. London is growing at an extreme speed. Other cities are growing as well. I think only one of the Baltic capitals is not growing, of all the capital cities of Europe at the moment. So everybody's growing. Everybody has the problem to provide housing, infrastructure, public transport, waterworks, whatever. You need money. And at the moment, all the discussion about austerity rules and about deficit criteria is, of course, problematic to us. And we raise a discussion on European level about that, because we say money is so cheap at the moment, and we are not allowed to take it. So we need to develop new instruments to have the money. I mean, EIB wants to give us money, but we can't take it, which is a stupid situation at the moment. So we have to really lead a profound discussion on how to create new instruments and also how to create new frameworks. And just let me add one point. Framework on the legal framework for us has been under attack, as some of you may know. We have been discussing this a lot, and our mayor has even organized a little, revolution for a resolution of mayors around Europe to convince the European Commission to change the competition rules. Because this is also something, even if you have money and money that you are allowed to take, someone will interfere with competition law, EU competition law, into our housing systems. They've been growing since about 100 years in Austria, I can tell. In Vienna, at least, I'm very sure about that, because the first communal housing was constructed in 1919, so it's not far from now. But we need to have not only the money, we also need to have the legal framework to do the job we have to do for 25,000 people coming into town every year.
Good. We've also got a couple of contributors from the floor. Bent Madsen, do you want to just stand up and explain who you are and where you're from? We've got a mic for you.
Yes, my name is Bent Madsen. I'm the CEO of the Danish Federation of Housing Associations. And today we've heard a lot about tenants' involvement and different degrees of how you can involve your tenants. But in Denmark, we have tenants' democracy, and this is a real democracy in Denmark. So the tenants, they decide at the local level, at the housing area, whether or not to make refurbishing, and they have the majority at the local level, and in the housing associations on the board, there is also the majority of the tenants. So in Denmark, it's not different degrees of tenants' involvement, it is the tenants who decides whether or not to make the priorities between different things.
Is there any learning from that you can share with us?
Yes, the learning from democracy is that it's very difficult sometimes to have democracy. And you can also see members of the Danish delegation, they are nodding.
Why are they smiling? Tell us.
Yes, we're also smiling. But if you have a big and profound refurbishing in a housing area, you have to involve your local tenants, and they have to decide on simple majority, and if they vote no, then it is a no. And you can come several times back to the tenants in the local area with a new project and a new project. And of course, the lessons learned is that you have to involve the tenants from the start. And when you have involved from the start, and you have the majority, and hopefully a big majority in the local housing area, then you also have a support for the whole process. And for the last 4 years, we have had refurbishing for about 4 billion euros in the housing associations in Denmark. And some of them are very big. You take small apartments and knock the walls down and make them to bigger apartments. And you also tear down some houses. And you have to have all the tenants, including these tenants who lived in the houses that you tear down, to vote yes for the whole refurbishing. So sometimes it's quite a struggle, but the alternative to democracy is not good. So we are very proud of the Danish tenants democracy, and of course every day it's also a struggle and a challenge to have a great enough involvement in the tenants democracy, because when you look at democracy at a local level, if a very few people attend to a tenants meeting, what is the sign of? Is it a sign is everything is good, or is it a sign of that is not so good? But when we have some big challenges and big refurbishing issues in the local area, then you also have many tenants attending to the tenants meetings.
Okay, thank you very much. And we also have Lucas here. Lucas, do you want to introduce yourself and what you do, please?
Lukas Siebenkotten. I'm the CEO of the German tenant organization Deutscher Mieterbund. About 1.2 million households are members of our local organizations, and Vienna is one of the biggest cities we ever see, I know, and you have the most house owning all over the world, but we have the biggest local tenants organization. And the biggest local tenant organization is the Berliner Mieterverein, with about 120,000 members, and we are very proud of this. So you know who I am, and now I'm standing here and I tell you we have no tenants democracy in Germany. Where no tenants democracy. We have a social rent law, but no tenants democracy. I can tell you an example of energy renovation, how it starts up in our country. Energy renovation of a dwelling, thermal isolation, new windows, new heating system to save energy, for example. The landlord has to announce the renovation. The tenant has to be informed at least 3 months before starting the works. And the landlord has to explain in written which measures the start and the time of construction works, the amount of the expected rent increase, and the future operating costs. The landlord does not need any permission or response from the tenant for the energy renovation works. Whether, when, and what will be renovated, he decides by his own, and not with the participation of the tenant. The landlord, after the renovation, is allowed to pass up, to give 11% of the total renovation costs a year to increase the rent. And it may be much money. It's not 11% higher rent, but 11% of the renovation costs a year. May be 200% or maybe only 3%. It depends on the rent the tenant had to pay before. The best would be communication. The best would be the landlord and the tenants come together, and the landlord announce, not in written, but he tells at first what he wants to do and discuss it with the tenants. The results of those communications are the best in our opinion. But we would like to have tenants democracy too. And the German Mieterbund will empower it, but we don't know whether we will be successful in the next 50 years.
So if you had one tip for being such a successful tenant organisation, and you wanted to share it today, what would it be?
To be a successful tenant organization with tenant democracy or without tenant democracy? We have 1.2 million members in our local organizations, but you must know we have 80 million inhabitants. It's a little bit. It's big. A little bit big. Yes, you are right. I think we are successful because we do two things. One is to give legal rental law advice to the people, to each and everyone who wants it and who needs it. And the other is that we don't only make demonstrations and manifestations, but sometimes try to do it together with the landlords, to have communication with the landlords. And most of the people think we are right in doing this.
Okay. Are there any questions or short contributions from the audience? I think we have one over here, please. Then the gentleman. If you just reintroduce yourself, please.
Yeah, Emmanuel Kutz from the International Union of Property Owners. I would like to react to the gentleman from the German Mieterbund, because I think you stress a very important point when you mention the German rental law allows the owner to increase by 11% of the total costs of a renovation the rent. Then this is what is in the text, and this is what the Commission, when we speak about renovation, they tell us, but you can increase the rent. It's easy, you know. In some country like Germany, you have even the legal power to do so. And now in Brussels, you should know that they don't talk only about renovation, but they speak about deep renovation. So now the construction industry is pushing for having obligation or putting more effort into deep renovation, which makes sense, but it's not feasible by everyone. And if you speak about the German case, then if you do like a 50,000 euro renovation and you increase by 11% your rent, this is not even thinkable. And most of the time, the problem is, thanks to the relation between the tenants and the landlord, notably in Germany, you can also agree on, because if you go to your tenant and you say, okay, I've done a renovation for, let's say, 10,000 euros. Would you agree that I increase the rent by 11%? The tenant would say, no, I'm leaving. And this is often the problem. So you want to keep your tenant because you're happy with him. You want to do improvement, energy efficiency improvement as well. But how do you do this? So I think it's a very important issue.
Okay, did you want to come back on that, Lucas? Yes.
No, I sit down. Okay. Sorry. I don't like this 11%. I only described. We know that a third of our population is not able to pay this. A third of our population, and the landlords know too. And the market, not in any region, gives you the chance to increase the rent 11% of the renovation costs. In most of our regions, the market only gives you 3 or 4%, but not 11%. And wait, what did he say? Yes, thank God, yes, that's right. And we would like to change the law with the 11% law. It's a discussion with our government. We have now a black-red government. It's not so easy to talk with a black-red government, but we have one. We think we must make it down. 5% or something like this is enough. And if people are not able to pay this, they need help. They need help from the state. it is necessary. We haven't got another chance. But the good landlords know that people are not able to pay this, and they make operations with only 3% or 4%, and that's better for most of the tenants.
David, the gentleman here at the front, please. We'll come to you. Yes, I will.
Thank you very much. My name is Özgür Öner. I'm representing GDW. GDW is the Federal Association in Germany for the real estate and housing companies. And thank you very much for all of your contributions. I really appreciate that. But I would like to give a small comment on that what Mr. Siebenkotten has said. First of all, directly to the democracy or lack of democracy in Germany, what he has mentioned. What we do have in Germany is a variety of different suppliers of housing. We have public housing companies, we do have cooperatives, and we do have private commercial and even listed companies providing housing. Within the cooperative sector and within the cooperative housing, almost 2,000 cooperative housing companies giving home, providing home for more than 2 million households are members of GDW. That is a full democracy in terms of goals of the company, in terms of what to do with the money. That is one part. And therefore, I would like to add this as a comment. You can't really generalize that as completely undemocratic. The second point for the public housing companies is there is a legal framework, and there is a reality. And the reality in this legal framework is that our public housing companies are starting quite ahead in communication work with the tenants, and also trying to avoid social exclusion, trying to avoid difficulties for the tenants. And quite often the process never starts at 3 months before the renovation procedure. It starts quite ahead. And a last point to the concerning the 11%, but you have already mentioned that. Quite often our companies can't do that, and especially in Berlin, if you take Berlin as an example, our bigger public housing companies, they always stay below than the Mietspiegel, the rental mirror what we do have, and it's not possible to put the whole 11% as an increase on to the rent. That is a small comment on your explanations.
Okay. I'll just take one last question, then come back to the panel for any contributions. It's the lady at the back there, who I think spoke earlier. We're just getting a microphone to you. Just wait.
No, I have just a question to the Mieterbund. Yes. I have a question to you, and it is very simple. Do you agree with the fact that the cost of the investment for energy efficiency has to be shared between tenants and which will be the right share for you of those costs?
Okay, we'll take that directly. But before we do, there's another gentleman here. We'll just take him on the way through with the microphone. Yes, please. Again, if you say who you are and where you're from.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Paul Doe. I'm Chief Executive of Shepherd's Bush Housing Group based in West London. Shepherd's Bush is almost as beautiful as Vienna, but not as big.
Sorry.
A question about governance, actually, and how tenants respond to the tensions of being involved in governance, because we have to increase our rents each year to support new building. We don't do it to support energy efficiency. It's because there are huge pressures on us to build in London. But the tenants don't see the benefit of those new homes. They carry on living in the same homes, and the new homes go to people from local authorities. Equally, we are under pressure to sell the very best homes that we have in central London, because they're worth millions of pounds. And in return for selling them, we can then go and build more, but much further out. Two things that the tenants don't like. I just wondered if there was any of those sorts of experiences as well amongst other countries.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Lucas, if you could just answer the first point about tenants responsibility to share in the costs, whether that was right or not.
We think and we propose that you must divide it into 3 thirds. 1/3 the landlord, 1/3 the tenant, and 1/3 the state, with going down with taxes and something like that, because it is a national and international effort to save the environment. And so we said third. But today in Germany, I think that's important. Today, in the result, the tenant pays alone. If you take this 11%, 9 years, you have, I'm not able to count, but I think 99%, and then you give some financing costs on it. Maybe after 12 or 13 years, the tenant has paid everything, and that's not okay. We think third.
Okay, thank you very much. Just coming back to Michaela and Dorte, do you want to respond to any of these things? Are there tensions between the responsibilities you have as a tenant, as a governor, and the responsibility you have for making decisions as a landlord? Do you find there's a tension sometimes?
I think there's a lot of discussion about economics and how to share things. And I think it's a problem concerning that this is an issue about democracy.
Yeah.
The democracy, and even I want to say to Madsen, I don't remember his first name, sorry, that you said that at sometimes democracy is difficult because when you come with good ideas from the organization, the tenants has the right to say yes or no, which is not really democracy, I think. Democracy is more like coming with a good idea and developing things, is to let things happen in the area from the tenants coming up with things and then finding a way to implement it in the area. That must be the democracy thing. But the problem is now maybe we've become a bit lazy in Denmark, because as a matter of fact, it has been almost important to get new members of the board in my area. We are 2 very active and 2 which don't have the language to be very active. One of them is pretty active, but she has some struggles with her Danish, so it's not so easy for her. So it's actually difficult to just have the democracy functioning in the areas, and it's okay. We have a nice place, and it's okay, and people can complain if the rent is going up, but. Of course it does, because the prices are going up, because the tax of the ground is rising together with the owned flats. It's the same tax we pay, so we pay more and more, and that's I agree very much about this, that we have to look at the competition and the laws about how we should compete with the owners' flats, because it's so different situation. So you cannot compare it with the low rent housing. But I think to discuss the democracy thing, it's not enough to discuss who's sharing what costs. We have to discuss how to make people actually become a part of this democracy and let the empowerment grow.
Okay, and any last contributions to you, Michaela, about the debate?
Well, the first thing is, if we would start selling our city-owned housing at the best places, the mayor would have to step back. I mean, this is true. The same day. Yeah, I mean, this is unthinkable for us, and this is why it's so lovely to be here, because all the variety of regional and national experiences, of course, is very enriching. But just to add the good governance aspect maybe to this, there's a few things. When we do some renovation, we call in Vienna we call it the gentle urban renewal approach. So it has been called sanfte Stadterneuerung, gentle urban renewal, since many years. And what we do, in fact, is there's one thing that you give it an expression, that you give it a feeling. Yeah, a lot has been talking about feelings today. So if you do this, it's not enough to have the spirit, but it's also important to have the instruments. And then I come back to the good governance. When you do that, there is a clear mechanism This is foreseen by law, that everybody has to be first involved in the process, that you have something called Schlichtungsstelle, which is an institution that regulates how much the house owner can take out from the future rents, but there's also a limitation in time. So there is a control in a way that you can plan that when you're a tenant in this house which is going to be renewed. And of course there is it's necessary to invest and it's necessary to finance this out of the rents, but there is of course, and the more the housing is supported by public money, the stricter these rules will be. The more it's free on the market, of course, the rules will not apply that much. But in fact, you always will have a mechanism, and that's part of the good governance we've been trying to implement in the whole system of housing in Vienna.
Okay. Thank you very much to all of you for your contributions. We will now swap again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michaela.